Greetings, demons, and welcome to a video that I have, no joke, been planning to make for over a year. I made the original order that led to this in April 2025, and we are now towards the end of July 2026, so this is well overdue. This is the Powkiddy RGB20S, and honestly, I've been really enjoying it, especially lately, so let's get into it and check it out.
Not the leader of a cult, RabbitWithAxe.
So, to start off, if you're not familiar with Powkiddy, they are a handheld gaming company. They make a lot of different consoles and stuff like that, but yeah, this, as I said, is the RGB20S, and whilst it is neither their newest nor their most powerful, it is one of their cheaper models, and I was able to actually pick this up on AliExpress, as I say, last year for around £60. That was on discount. Right now it's looking like it's around £80, Great British Pound at least, which I still think is actually pretty good for this. I have done a decent amount of work on this one. It does run ArcOS by default, and if we just get through RGB, we will see the little ArcOS and the emulation station loading screens, or we should do. But yeah, I have, since, buying this, since actually receiving it, and since actually playing around with it a decent amount, completely reinstalled ArcOS. So this has ArcOS 2.0 now. I believe it had 1.0 or 1 point odd originally. And I've also taken out a lot of the games that were on this. So I believe, with maybe the exception of like 1 or 2, these are all my own personal ROMs that I have dumped. I do have a few things I just had on here for testing, essentially. But yeah, it does run pretty much everything you'd want in this form factor, at least, pretty well. I do have some issues with Nintendo 64 specifically, but realistically, are you going to be wanting to play full 3D games with this sort of setup? I know it has 2 sticks, it also has 4 triggers. It's not the best. I really like using this for what I think a lot of people use these sorts of consoles for, which is Game Boy emulation, maybe a bit of DS, maybe a bit of 3DS if you have something a little bit lighter. I have had some success with 3DS games. I don't have any actually on here right now, but I do have a full suite of Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and I have messed around with a little bit of PlayStation emulation as well. I do have Commodore 64 listed here, and I also have an Amiga game on here, which I think is in my all games list. Yeah, I have Zool on here as well. I cannot get any of like the PC consoles to actually work, so yeah, for the most part that is basically just I can't get Amiga stuff or Commodore 64 stuff to actually run. But when it comes to like your Nintendo consoles, and even, as I say, with PlayStation, I have been pretty successful other than 64. Graphics wise, in terms of like the texturing and stuff, I only on here I have Lilac Wars, Mario Odyssey 64, which is ROM hack, and Super Mario 64. All 3 of them have serious issues with the texturing. I've probably just set something up incorrectly, but yeah, for me this is very much something that I use to play Game Boy games, which, speaking of which, we may as well get something loaded up, so why not? Yeah, we'll go with Lego Star Wars, the video game, the original, and yeah, the form factor is actually really nice of this. The screen actually is really good. It doesn't show too well on camera, but it is actually a really nice screen overall. Yeah, it really doesn't show very well in on camera, but that's fine. I'll start a new save as well. I haven't got very far in this. I've actually been playing it more on my actual Game Boy Advance as of recent, rather than on this, just because this form factor, while nice in terms of like carryability, like it fits, it's very small. I will later in the video just compare it size-wise to a SP, a original Game Boy Pocket, which this is very much based on, and also I'll bring out a Switch just to do a size comparison. Obviously this is considerably smaller than a Switch, but yeah, in terms of the overall play experience, like, as I say, if all you're wanting to play is Game Boy games or older, you're gonna have a great time. This is honestly a really good device for that kind of emulation. When it comes to NES, SNES, I haven't personally tried anything from Sega, though I'm sure Mega Drive and Saturn will work fine. Saturn might be a little bit more difficult, and Master System obviously would be absolutely okay. But yeah, overall, like, the experience of this console is actually really, really good. And yeah, in terms of just general running, like, I can't really make a complaint about anything, because at the end of the day, it can only run as well as the hardware allows. This isn't, you know, an especially expensive or powerful handheld, and, you know, when you compare it to a lot of the other handhelds that are on the market right now, especially, I mean, even from Powkiddy, but especially from other companies, yeah, it really isn't comparable to a lot of other stuff. But if you are just wanting something small, something that you can just pocket, I've been actually carrying this around with me pretty regularly. And I'm sorry that I keep just moving all over the place. I am actually looking at the actual console rather than through the camera lens, so I keep moving slightly out of frame. But yeah, the carryability, the actual like size of everything, and just how much I can get away with in terms of just carrying this around with me has been really, really good. And yeah, in terms of the actual functionality as well, like I've already gone over, like I'm currently running, this is the Switch settings, Switch menu system, whatever, that's supposed to emulate like a modern console like the Switch, or like, I guess, modern PlayStation consoles and stuff like that. But there is a lot of different options in terms of what you can actually have. You have a very rudimentary like options menu, which I try and avoid having to use. There's also, if I can remember how to actually get to it, there is an actual file manager, which I can never, oh, it's right there, which, yeah, I don't find overly useful. It is laid out okay. It's based on, so there are two SD cards. There is a OS SD card as well as a ROMs or games or whatever you want to call it SD card. I have all the games on this card. These are actually the ones that came with the console, so I think it's a 16 gig and a 124 to 125, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to just take it out right now, but yeah. They're not the best cards, they run a bit slow. I've done a few tests on them, they're not especially reliable, but for the sake of, you know, they came with the device, you can't really complain too much. But yeah, when it comes to the actual file manager, this is purely for the OS card. I have not been able to find a way to get into the ROM card, so if I ever have to change anything, I literally just put this into a computer and just mess with it like that. But yeah, that is an option if you are wanting. We do have a reset button if you're not wanting to fully power it off, just to restart, because the file manager doesn't allow you to quit back to the main menu. With the games, obviously, you can just hit start select twice, and it will take you out, and that goes for pretty much every bit of software, including RetroArch, if you are running something directly in RetroArch, which, for the most part, I don't see a need to. Everything here is running through RetroArch, and you can set up with other emulators if you want. But for the most part, I've not been too successful with it. RetroArch has a large amount available for it, and you do get both RetroArch and RetroArch 32 in the basic install. For me, as I say, with the fact that I'm mostly using Game Boy stuff, and, you know, the odd bit of older stuff, the odd bit of, like, 3D gaming, but, like, basic 3D gaming, yeah, basic RetroArch is more than enough for me. And if you are wanting to run something a little bit newer, I mean, realistically, you're not going to be running on this anyway. I say this thing kind of struggles texture-wise. I'll even run a little bit of Mario 64. That's Commodore 64, not Nintendo 64. We'll jump into some Super Mario 64 just so you can see what I mean. But yeah, when it comes to the actual like texture quality of 3D games, and this also goes for Pepsi Man, which is the only PlayStation game I've actually tried on this since, you know, resetting everything. Yeah, textures, as you can already tell, are a bit wonky. It's not ideal, and unfortunately, despite the fact that it actually runs pretty well. Now, I'll quickly just show a bit of gameplay. Well, I would show a bit of gameplay if it wasn't for the fact that this has the very annoying intro sequence that you can't skip. There are ways, I can't remember how to do it exactly. There are ways of fast forwarding, I just do not remember them off the top of my head because it's not something that I normally do. But yeah, you can see even on like 2 there, the texturing is a bit off. It's mostly the like enemy models, the character models and stuff like that, and then you've got a lot of flicker of the actual wall textures and stuff. It calms down a lot depending on what you're doing, and it is playable, don't get me wrong. It's just not an ideal experience, especially when, you know, like right now I can run Mario 64 like on my phone far, far better than this is running. And yeah, it's a little disappointing. He's essentially yeah, he's very glowy is definitely a way to describe it. But in terms of how it runs, like, this is fine. If as I say, I'm probably doing something terribly wrong, and if you can figure out how to, how to get this actually working properly, and like I clearly can't, it probably will actually run pretty well, because for the most part, like, you do have everything for 3D gaming. I say 2 sticks, so it's like, as much as, N64 doesn't really have, full right analog stick, control the camera, like, you do have that accessibility, and if you are playing, like, a PS1, PS2, even, like, a PSP game that requires camera movement, like, it's not a terrible experience. And realistically, like, you would be able to potentially even run something up to, like, GameCube, Wii even, and just... It wouldn't be a perfect experience by any means, but it would be a workable experience, especially if you can get past some of the slight issues that I'm experiencing in terms of graphical fidelity. But yeah, as you can see, like, it is running, and the fact that you can get 3D gaming running on something this small and this light is really impressive. And also, in my experience, at least from everything I've done, there's really very little in terms of, like, heating up or anything. Sorry, I was just double checking my controls. Oh, okay. I'm not gonna be able to get this, am I? Come on. Come on. There we go. I just wanted to make sure I got a star. But, yeah, for the most part, like, it does run fine. Like, most of the texture issues are down to just Mario, really, and some, like, wall textures, like, glitching in and out, depending on how far you are away. It's fine. It's workable. If this is your first time playing something on N64, this isn't ideal by any means, but if you are, someone who has already played maybe on original hardware or just on a, much more powerful device, this is definitely a perfectly fine way to just play it on the go, especially if you don't want to be playing the DS version. And yeah, I think that really goes for anything that you can get working on this. Like, as I say, Lilac Wars has pretty much the exact same... Sorry, Star Fox! Star Fox 64 has pretty much the same issues as with Mario 64. But yeah, Game Boy stuff is all fine, and yeah, we'll just quickly jump into Pepsi Man. Oh, I've messed up the file management there a little bit. But yeah, if we just quickly jump into... And yeah, I don't have the BIOS for PlayStation, which is probably part of the reason that it's not working too well. But actually, I don't know how quickly we can get into the game. It does work. It does work, and you get the full motion video and stuff, and it's not terrible quality. It looks fine. Can I skip through this? Yes, I can. But yeah, full motion video works perfectly fine on this. Like, if you wanted, you could probably make this into a decent, like, media machine. Like, you can get some software that would be able to play movies or whatever like that, if you do have, stuff backed up. And, yeah. If I remember correctly, I believe this had a weird issue with not having textures for the buildings when I was running it before, but I say that's just due to my own ignorance of how to set up emulators properly. There we go. It's fine. It works. This is actually running better than I remember it running before. Yeah, like PS1, perfectly fine. I have had hitching and, as I say, graphical issues, but, if you can deal with that, and if you're a much better gamer than I am, it's actually an okay experience for the most part. Like, I wouldn't complain about this in the slightest, realistically, and, for something simple like, Pepsi Man in this case, like, you're not really going to be needing it to, run that impressively. I forgot how to do that. It's that button. But yeah, for the most part, I'm so bad at this. I'm just gonna quit before I show myself off to be a terrible gamer again. But yeah, when it comes to, as a Commodore 64, like, in theory it should run. Amiga, like, in theory it should run. I've just not been able to, and it's probably just due to my setup not being ideal. But yeah, for the most part, this is a really good device. I do really think, especially if you can find it for a cheap price, especially in the current gaming climate, like, this is a really good just handheld, and it does run a lot of things that I personally would love to have. But yeah, for the most part, it is a really good console. and just turning it off, just waiting for the little indicator light to turn off. You can change the colour of that if you do wish. It's only between green and red, I believe. But yeah, that is the Powkiddy RGB20S. It is a lovely little console, but before we finish off, I'm just going to bring in some other consoles just to compare with. So to just bring in a nice variety of comparisons, we have a Game Boy Pocket. This is reshelled and also missing its little lens, but yeah, it's relatively similar. Like, they're a little smaller, like an actual Game Boy Pocket compared to this, and obviously, you know, a lot thinner just because of the triggers in the back. But overall, if you're willing to carry a Game Boy Pocket, you're probably fine with the Powkiddy. When it comes to Game Boy Color, once again, about the same size overall, actually a little shorter. In terms of height, thickness is about the same, actually. And then just moving on to a few more modern things, we've got a new 3DS, not 3DS XL, a new 3DS, just a regular new 3DS, and yeah, in terms of like real estate, like screen-wise, it's actually a bit bigger. In terms of pocketability, once again, very, very similar. We've got Advanced SP, which open up, once again, bigger screen, about the same thickness overall. Yeah, roughly. Obviously, this is a little bit smaller overall, so, you know, take it or leave it. And then, just for most modern Nintendo stuff, we've got a Switch 1, just for size comparison. And then we've also got a Switch 2, which looks gigantic. Obviously, these are just tablet only, so not taking into consideration the fact you also have your Joy-Cons, but yeah, it's a small console. And just for a final thing, just 'cause I've got them to hand. PSP, PS Vita, and PSP is about the same thickness as the Vita. And then also, just for pocketability wise, we've got the GameSir Pocket Taco, which, if you don't know, is just a controller for your phone. It can work on Switch and stuff as well, but yeah, it's considerably bigger than, you know, something that you could just carry for your phone usage. But for the most part, I don't think that's too much of a negative. And generally, like, size-wise, pocketability, I'd say I've been carrying this around with me a decent amount. It's never got in the way. It easily fits into most, like, you know, containers in bags, you know, sections in bags that are for, you know, a game console or a phone or whatever. And, yeah, generally, I've been having a really good time with this. It has pretty much every button you'd need for modern gaming, as well as obviously retro gaming. You do have a volume slider, which I didn't show you, but it does just go 0 to 100. It's pretty simple. Decent speaker. It's nothing too special, but personally, I don't really love speakers anyway. We've got power, USB Type-C. We've got OTG, so if you're wanting to plug in a controller or anything like that, that's obviously pretty good. And a aux cable for headphones, which is always appreciated in these sorts of devices. But yeah, that's really it for the Powkiddy RGB20S. It's really good. In my opinion, for the price, especially for it being a lower end, like, basic handheld, like, this is great. If you are just getting into, you know, this sort of thing, you know, these sort of emulation handhelds, this is a great starter option. And while there are definitely better options out there, there's a lot of more expensive options, a lot more, you know, versatile options. There's also ones that, you know, follow a different layout. So maybe if you want something that is more like an SP, or if you're wanting something that's more like a regular Game Boy Advance, if you're wanting something that's like laid out like a DS or a 3DS, all of that is available. This obviously isn't that. This is very much going for that sort of, well, as I compared to Game Boy Pocket sort of vibe, or even, you know, Game Boy Color, if you're so that way inclined. Never been a fan of the color personally. But yeah, overall, Powkiddy RGB20S, really good console in my opinion, really good little handheld, and yeah, definitely something that is worth looking at if you are interested, just because it is generally pretty affordable when gaming is not that affordable right now. But yeah, with that being said, that is going to be it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like it, subscribe and enter, and ring the bell so you never miss upload. Otherwise, can play your thoughts and feelings on the RGB20S from Powkiddy, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Look at the screen, you'll be fine. Culture's a disease, but worlds divide. I just wanna tell